Let's start with belly to belly, because a lot of people, I think, who hear the name are intrigued and curious. What is belly to belly? Many of you on this call are familiar with my work on nervous system self-regulation. Belly to belly is a modality that is incredible for nervous system co-regulation. And I know some of you are really interested in that. And I know I'm really interested in that. So I'll pass it over to you, Rachel, to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. So Belly to Belly, I'm not the founder of.
Yes.
Belly to Belly was created by a beautiful, beautiful man called David Cates, who is my beloved mentor and teacher, and who I have inherited the wisdom of the practice through his, I would call it a lineage. We've been joking, it's a lineage of love. And Belly to Belly is, a partnered breathing meditation, essentially. And it's focused on taking breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth with sound, for those breaths to be this kind of synchronistic, same pace breath, and for those breaths to happen in sync with a partner. So there is a field that starts to get created through the dropping in of these breaths and the synchronization, particularly of the inhale and then the exhale with the sound together. And you, in an most ideal world, you're in like a full physical contact. Lover's embrace, we call it, where your full fronts are meeting, and there's the possibility that your bellies can meet in the center as you breathe in and then come back out. Of course, when we're doing this practice, the most important thing is relaxation. It is a practice where at every step where there is a choice point, you choose what relaxes you most. So if you're doing it with a partner and you prefer not to be in full physical contact because that's what would relax you most, then you go with that. But in an ideal world, we'd all be feeling safe enough to be in that close. And essentially, the practice is a breathing practice. We drop down and in together by taking these breaths, deep breath into the nose and out through the mouth. And that happens for an amount of time through a guided meditation until there's the drop, there's the sink. Something happens. There's a moment of union. And
co-regulation.
We have, regulation. Essentially, our nervous systems are regulated. We're opening and relaxing. And then we do different things from that point. Play different intimacy games, have really vulnerable, beautiful sharings, hold one another, touch one another. Like, it depends on, you can do this practice with a partner and just allow things to happen. And this is essentially, and then how many of the prompts that I've guided got created were by me doing the practice and allowing the wisdom of what wanted to happen through our bodies to naturally emerge, and then doing those things. And from there, I created many different prompts for the practice that I then guide people in. So, so there's a whole smorgasbord full of beautiful, juicy practices, but that's essentially how Belly to Belly works.
Amazing.
And I'll say one more thing. There is like an element of this that is relational, that is done in pairs, and there's another element of it that is tribal. So when we come together in a group, it's beyond co-regulation; it's group regulation. The sound and the breath and the embodiment is happening on a group level, which is it's different. It's for me much deeper. And more collective shared wisdom is moving through the space.
Amazing. Yes. So what could an introductory belly to belly, like hour or 2 hour long gathering, what could it look like, and what varying degrees of physical connection might people choose to have with other participants in the circle?
Yeah. So there's a few different layers. One is we call standing belly to belly, which is people standing up. And this is usually when the individuals who are in the group are less familiar with one another, or there's maybe not as much safety in this space. Then we start with walking around, because this walking allows the leg muscles to be activated and engaged, which would support the flight response. So sometimes when people enter a group room, you're kind of on alert and vigilance is up. So we want to work with the social system that is saying, like, hey, be on alert. It's not safe here. You don't know these humans. You don't know if they'll hurt you. And we allow the leg muscles and the arm muscles to be engaged, so that they're creating a somatic sense of safety, which is basically saying to the body, I'm here. I can move if I want to move. I can take a distance if it's not safe. I can move closer. And I also have full access to my boundary muscles, which is my arms. And so we'll do standing belly to belly, which looks like the same breath that we just took in the guided meditation, but we do them facing one another and standing, just creating a synchronized nervous system group field by doing little short micro breaths and practices with multiple people in the space standing up.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do the practice also sitting down. So we can sit down and we can sit back to back. We can sit facing one another. We can start to maybe make contact just with, you putting your hand on my heart and me putting my hand on your heart, and we're seated. And then like the ultimate is a room full of mattresses where everyone can lay down and do the practice. We have a self-guided portion where you lay in your own space and touch your own body, which would be the self-regulation part of the practice. And then from that space, when we feel safe, when I feel regulated in here, then I can roll over into connection with a partner and do the practice in a partner. And there's even times when we do the practice with 3 partners or 4 partners or the whole room.
How can you get your belly to belly with that many people? I'm curious.
Well, you can't get your belly to belly with that many people, but you can touch, and all the bodies are touching. And I believe that energy can move through all of our bodies when we're touching, and especially the sound on the exhale. Like this practice is most known for the sound on the exhale, and that sound is like, it's almost like an animal call. It's like cows, when there's a herd of cows and they're mooing, that moo is communicating to the cows on the outside of the herd or on the inside, so that they can always be in this communication of what's happening through, like, there's a sound of the nervous system. And so belly to belly is very much this, it's very much about the sound and the vocals and the depth and the vibration that's coming through our individual and shared collective sound. As the facilitator of the practice, I'm listening to the group sound when I guide this practice. And that's what's informing often my next move.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I see some comments in the chat here. I see Laura says, recently learned about how humans' brains sync when we do things together, which is important individual and collectively. This sounds like this encourages this brain synchronization. Beautiful, beautiful reflection, Laura. I'd love to pass that over to you, Rachel.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. It is exactly this. We are supporting coming into a shared reality. That is like, how do we create a shared reality together? How do we create a safe, a space where everyone is on the same frequency and organizing around a shared vibration? And yes.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, guys, like, can you let me know in the chat box, does this sound like the juiciest meditation practice ever or what? Like, are you guys as excited about this as I am? You know, I'm a total co-regulation nerd. I talk about somatic co-regulation in my course, vagus nerve and nervous system self-regulation. So this is so up my alley. I'd love to hear in the chat what your thoughts are if you're excited to learn more about this. I'm very intrigued. How long has Belly to Belly been happening? And like for an intro workshop for brand new people, how long does it usually go? For like a couple hours or?
Yeah, so David Cates, who is kind of a nomadic wanderer wizard, started experimenting with the practice first in Seattle of the United States. I would say just over 10 years ago, probably somewhere around 12 years ago. And then 10 years ago, David moved to Bali and invited a group of people to Bali he said, like, I really want to flex my teaching muscles and work with a group of people who just wants to go all the way with me into my teachings. I need permission to just go for it. And I just so happened to be a part of the lucky group of people who ended up there. I had never met David Cates. The Kula.
Yeah, I've heard stories about the Kula when I lived in Bali. I heard about the Kula. The famous Kula.
It's one of those moments in life, my soul guided me somewhere at the right place at the right time that I just feel so humbly grateful and lucky for. It's where I met, Robin Lynn and Rick Smith and a lot of Richard Bach and the person my ex-partner who I created Embodied Intimacy with was Sir Roderick and a group of other people. And we all just went for it. We went for almost a year. I think it was 9 months solid of practicing belly to belly 20 hours a week. And just went for it. I mean, our collective nervous system was so dropped in and synced up. We would go out to dinner and we would be at restaurants in Ubud, and one person would take a breath and everyone would follow them. Like we were one breathing organism everywhere that we went. It was stunning and insane and so rare. And I can't even imagine anything like that would ever happen again. But we dropped into a particular transmission of the practice with David. And that is really where it came to life, because there was a depth that we were able to live that created coherence, and we opened a field together, an energetic field that exists, that is like, it for me, there is a invisible space. I call it my iCloud, my own personal iCloud of belly to belly. And at any time I'm doing the practice or I'm guiding the practice, I can tap into this cloud and transmit or receive access to a wealth of knowledge that comes from this space that I believe is what happens when we do things like embodied practices. And I also believe there is a particular frequency that has happened through the sound, that is given through the sound, that creates this invisible
web.
Space. Web, thank you. Yeah, great.
Yeah, the sound frequencies have like codes and medicine in them. So transmissions in them sonically. So I totally get that. So, because I don't know, I myself am so curious, and I think some of the other folks on the call will be curious, like if they were to go to like an intro to belly class or workshop, and I know they're happening all around the world. I just found out yesterday they're happening in Costa Rica, which I'm super excited about. So I will be reporting back to you after I experience that in person. I mean, I actually have done belly to belly with one of my besties, Robin Lynn, who I've invited to be a guest on our circle sometime soon. So I have done the practice, but I'd love to see what it's like in groups, and especially with people that you're just meeting for the first time. And like, so how long is it? And what are the various layers? Like, if you're kind of like, it sounds like one of the layers is you're standing, and then one is you're seated back to back, and then one is you're actually like embracing each other, kind of like in a cuddling position. Am I missing anything? And also, how long are the intro gatherings, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, an intro gathering, a typical one, is probably about 3 hours. And one of the interesting things about belly to belly, I mean, there is belly to belly is a very feminine practice, and there are and it's also like playing music, if we use the music analogy. So there is a way that a facilitator of belly to belly can guide a session of belly to belly the same way a musician plays a song. That you just play the song, and the song happens, and it's a beautiful song. And there's also an invitation for the practice to be more of an improvisation. So
like
instead of there being a rigid script, that the belly to belly is informed by the group field. So the bodies that arrive in this space, the facilitators invitation is to listen and to be in a dance and a dialogue with the bodies and with the sound frequencies that are coming from the bodies. And that, like, some of the most beautiful belly to bellies I've guided came from just the exquisiteness of that moment and what was coming through that group field. Some have also come just like not from the receiving of information, but from what was happening in my own body emotion landscape that then I was gifting back out. So there is a very alive process that's happening in belly to belly. So in that way, I couldn't define it, but one partnership could, like, I think the shortest partner practice I could guide would be about 30 minutes. So you're in one pairing, you go through these steps and kind of drop in. I mean, it takes a minute to drop in. It takes a minute to sync up, and then to explore, like to play and to dance in that frequency, and then to take our time to come back out of it. It's really a practice of relaxation, taking time, feeling and allowing, and then seeing what happens.
Have you heard this phrase from craniosacral, the long tide rhythm? It's like you're on the long tide rhythm. You're not rushing. It's like the opposite of rushing. It just reminds me of the long tide rhythm. It's a term from the craniosacral modality. So I'd love to hear in the chat if you guys have any burning questions or if you have anything you want to share, any reflections. I see we have a couple comments. Sandy says, I would love to learn more. Laura says, wow, that's fascinating. Jenny says, what was it like leaving that community after being so much in sync? And one of the things that I love about the Kula is what I know about the Kula is that the people from the Kula are still really, really close friends, which is a really great reflection of the nourishing, mutually uplifting energy of the Kula. So I will get back to that question in 1 second. And Jenny says, do you know if there are facilitators in Sweden? As a matter of fact, there are. This is a lot of facilitators in Europe, more so than in other places. It seems like there's a lot of facilitators. Rachel can answer that. And then Mel says, can you do belly to belly at home with your partner? I definitely think you can. So I'm going to pass some of those over to Rachel to answer.
One of the effects of being a part of the Kula is this, for me, was a really, like, I don't know, a different level of bonding and connection. I even just spoke to one of the Kula members who I hadn't spoken to for a while the other day. And it was just like, that was 10 years ago. It was just like an instant drop inness, an instant recognition. We went on really, really deep, profound, intimate explorations together. And there's this knowingness. I also had the opportunity or the gift of, this partner booster who I had. We met in that practice, and so our whole relationship was formed through the belly to belly practice. And that synchronized nervous system that we had together through the hours and hours of breathing and sounding, it's like, even to this day that we've ended our romantic relationship, our bodies just have an ability to sync up together. Like, it's the best way to describe it. Like, I feel he and I's body more than anyone else in the world is just like, it's just like they know the language, they know how to regulate, they know how to find that rhythm again. And I haven't yet done the practice that many hours with another human being yet, other than actually probably my daughter. Now I've maybe racked up that many belly to belly hours with. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter now who I love to transmit as much as I can of this practice to her. So from Bali, I relocated actually to Sweden. I think Sweden is, no, maybe not the first, but maybe the second belly to belly facilitator training ever happened in Sweden. Many of the events that I run are still in Sweden. So Sweden definitely has it. The belly to belly facilitator training has happened in Sweden and Germany, and will be happening in the UK this fall. And what was the other question? Oh, can it be done with your partner? Yes. I have a funny story about that, actually. It can totally be done with your partner. I have a sister who's very American mainstream, very Christian, and she had just finished having 2 kids. And she reached out to me one day and said, hey, I know you're working with intimacy. I'm having trouble with my husband. We've been through these kids, and do you have any practices that we could do to find intimacy again? I know you must know. And I was like, oh, how do I communicate this to my sister who's like, she's not going to want to do this. So I said to her about as much as I've said to you all, which is like, listen, just do this. Just lay down on the bed together, like hold each other and breathe with a synchronized inhale and exhale, and just keep doing that. And she's like, until when? Until what happens? Don't worry about anything happening. Nothing's supposed to happen. Just let that happen. Let that be the practice. The practice is we breathe, we make a sound on the exhale, and we do that as long until our bodies tell us what wants to happen next. And she said, okay, I'm going to try it. And I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. They're just going to think I'm some like super weird hippie or something. The next day, my sister called me and she's like, Rachel, how did you know? And I was like, what? She's like, I haven't had an orgasm since before I was pregnant. And after belly to belly, I had 2 orgasms. I was like, what's that supposed to happen? Like, you guys made love? Yes, that's exactly what this practice turned into. We made love and I had 2 orgasms. How did you know that's what was missing? And I was like, I didn't, like, that's totally not what's supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have sex. This practice is about intimacy, not sexuality. So yes, the answer is yes, anyone can do it. And my invitation is always like to not have an expectation of what happens. And I think that was the gift that she got and that they got, was to drop into a certain level of intimacy that didn't have an expectation, that just allowed the bodies to naturally move with the energy that was alive. And when they relaxed and softened and deepened into that space, what wanted to happen was they wanted to make love. And that's beautiful, So anyone can do it. It's very simple. And try it and see what happens.
Beautiful. So on another note, a slightly different note, I also facilitate somatic co-regulation practices here in Costa Rica at women's circles in a totally platonic, in a women's circle context. And one of the simple things we do is just like have ladies lean into each other, shoulder to shoulder. This is not belly to belly. This is somatic co-regulation, but we have ladies go around the room and then just choose someone you're drawn to and then just sit down with them, lean into each other, shoulder to shoulder, lean your lower legs into their lower legs and just lean into each other and breathe together. And then just whisper to them some of the things that drew you to them and some of the things that you appreciate about them that you noticed and some of the things that you think are special about them, and just whisper. And so the ladies love that practice. And I've had people say, I should be doing this with my husband. So it can go anywhere in the spectrum of like, very platonic and completely, not sexual at all. And then it can also, it sounds like belly to belly can be obviously done with lovers or done with, women and women, men and men, platonic, whatever contexts. But to add to that, I'm curious what other somatic co-regulation practices you practice at some of your events, like the Field Festival and things like that. You mentioned 2 names and we wrote them down. I wrote them down in my book, but I forgot to bring my book. Do you know the ones that we're talking about? They actually had names and they were like a thing. And I was like, yeah, let's talk about that on the call.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so since we're talking about, since you're so well known for the nervous system, I think it's important when we talk about the nervous system to talk about when we're like hypoaroused or hyperaroused.
Yeah.
So there's times when the nervous system is in an activated state, like, and this is fight, flight, freeze. It's like the nervous system is saying, do something, danger, 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 danger. And when the nervous system is in that activated state, that's not always the best time to do belly to belly.
Definitely.
Because you'll be laying down and you'll be breathing and your body's like, dude, what the fuck? There's a lion in the space. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes breathing works, but it depends on the level of danger and there's a lot of nuances. Sometimes what the body needs to come into regulation isn't always soft, gentle,
right,
and breath. Sometimes it is to activate, you know. Lately, for example, my fight response has been activated. So I started doing really long runs and really intense runs up a mountain because me going with the flight response is a regulatory practice for me. It lets my body know I can run away from danger. I have mobility. I can do something about it. And the same thing is happening relationally. So sometimes relationally, we need to activate to regulate. And so I was sharing with you a practice. One is called like, it's like met in power. So essentially like the boundary muscles, the muscles that when I'm in a fight response need to be activated are the arm muscles. So with the flight response, it's the leg muscles. With the fight response, it's the arm muscles. So we do a practice where we put our palms together and take a step back and push into one another and make a sound on the exhale. So it could be like, while making eye contact, really important. And this is me being met in my full power and you receiving me in that full power whilst my arm muscles get activated, which sends the signal down to my nervous system. I can protect myself. You know I can protect myself, and you'll meet me in my power and respect my power. And this is one co-regulation practice. So sometimes like with my partner, if I'm in a fight response and I'm going into maybe raising my voice, maybe screaming, maybe being really angry and wanting to hurt him, sometimes we'll pause from words and do this practice. Let the animal body get the fight response out. Yeah. And then once that fight response is met, then we can have a conversation from a regulated state, because my words and my fight isn't trying to be met through my vocal, but it's actually coming somatically through the body.
Amazing.
So that was one practice.
I want to also just amazing, and I see a ton of hearts as soon as you started going into the because like you said, there's hyperarousal, there's hypoarousal, there's fight and flight, and there's freeze and there's shutdown. There's a lot too going out of the window of tolerance. It can show up in many different ways for different people. How do you recommend? Because in my course, I'm recommending ways that people can do somatic co-regulation with, a trusted neighbor or friend. If people are interested in doing more simple somatic co-regulation practices in their community or with their local, yoga people that they hang out with or whatever, how would you recommend starting to get into implementing some of these practices so that we can receive the gift of co-regulating our nervous systems and boosting our oxytocin and all the medicine, deepening connection, all the medicine that comes with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just that. I think it for me, the biggest, the thing that makes the biggest difference is the breath and the sound. Like, for sure, hands down, I can co-regulate with anyone without physical touch by breathing and sounding together. Like that sound, the vibration, and it's not just it's like your authentic sound, like really letting your authentic sound sing and be heard. like loud, like not silent, like. And this piece, this like vocal piece of like the sound on the exhale is a big piece for people. Just that is like, for some people, that's the hump to get over to, and what is needed to feel safe to do that. And then the second best piece is physical touch. So like as soon as our bodies make physical contact, we are regulating. So some version of breath and sound and touch you can do with almost anyone. And I would just invite you to explore and experiment with where you feel safe and with how you can just always take one step towards. And if that's not safe, then the other practice we were going to speak about is called Primal Play. And this is basically where you create a defined space. It could be a mattress of a bed. It could be a few yoga mats on the floor. And you sit with someone, and then without any words, just allow your bodies to move. That's it. Just explore. Just have a body-to-body dialogue with movement where you maybe move in and touch and have contact. Maybe you plop down and have a crazy puddle. Maybe you get a little spicy and play fight and wrestle, but just allow what wants to happen. And I see that so often people just need to let their bodies unwind together. We spend so little time doing that for what our large mammal bodies actually need. Just let your bodies explore, play, like watch children. I watch my daughter all the time, like watch what children do is really what we need before our minds start to get in the way and start to predefine things and say what's good and bad and what's not okay. It's just like, we need to be heard, seen, and felt. We need to breathe. We need to regulate. We need to feel safe and connected.
Amazing. When you talk about primal play, it reminds me of something. I'm not sure if you know my friend Shiloh Boss, because I know you and I have lots of mutual friends, but Shiloh and I were exploring birthing this modality called remammaling. And we premiered the remammaling modality at my birthday party in Encinitas in 2018. So we just got together a whole bunch of our friends, and we just basically did like the primal play, like just allowing ourselves to be mammals and just, pre-verbal mammaling, rolling around. It was one of my best birthday parties ever.
I bet. It sounds like a fabulous time.
Super fun. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Rachel. I'm so looking forward to more.